Carl and Brendan here from Brrraaains A Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial for short. And you know what time it is. It's 10 things we hate about punk. We have done 10 things we love. Go check that out first. If you think this is all about negativity, this is just a sister video. We have to do them in twos. So 10 things I hate, 10 things Brendan hates about punk. We're talking pop punk, punk rock, the whole culture as an entity, the entire thing. So you started with the love. I will start with the hate. And some of these are going to be me being a right dick about things. You know, just I'm like, oh, I don't like that, so I'm pulling it. And one of the things I really don't like, and it's more reflection than anything else, when I look back and I'll see a video or see an interview, and there's a famous one with Sex Pistols walking out on an interview. And what fucks me off about that is, well, you agreed to go on that show, and then you didn't like the interviewer's questions. And, you know, I mean, you agreed, and you know, no one forced you. You still decided we're going to go on TV. And you didn't use it as a platform because you weren't standing there ranting. You got sweary and mean to the guy and then stormed off stage. And the idea that it made you, it was an excuse to be a wanker. And that's what I don't like. It's that whole like, well, I'm punk in it, so that means you're a prick. Yeah. And it's like, no, maybe you're the prick. You know, that kind of thing. Or anyone that wore a suit and was doing a job, like let's say a lot of these interviews, you tend to see it a lot more with interviews with old punk bands, where it's like, oh, well, you're just wearing a suit, you are, and all that. And it's like, yeah, maybe his job says he has to wear a suit. Oh, well, that's not punk, is it? And it's like,
well, maybe he chose to wear a suit because that's how he truly wanted to be, which is meant to be the embodiment of punk. You know?
Yeah, so the whole...
No, I agree, yeah. Anyone finding a reason to be a cunt.
Yeah.
Not cool.
Yep.
So my first one then comes really from my naivety about punk, which as I wouldn't say I'm really less naive now, but having read quite a bit in the last few days, in particular, as I crammed to try and find 10 things I didn't like about punk, I never really thought about punk as a whole culture.
Yeah,
I never really did. You know, in fact, the more I look into it, and I'm not saying this is true, so, you know, I'm by no means an expert in it. The word punk doesn't really apply to music, actually. It was punk rock, or it was horror punk, or it was whatever. And punk was more about the everything.
Yep.
You could be a punk without liking punk rock. You could be a punk and like trance music.
Yeah.
If you had the punk spirit. I'm not saying that's how it was in real life, but I think that's what the idea was, right?
Well, it makes sense.
But me being naive going into this stuff, thinking, you know, it's really about music. It's all about music. Punk's just a genre of music. And then the more I read into it, the more I kind of got disappointed when it turned out that actually it seemed to be so much more about, or it actually probably started more as about fashion than music. The fashion came first, the music came afterwards.
Right.
In terms of the second wave. And then as I looked into that, the origins of it, I mean, essentially the origins of punk are put down by most people as coming from the UK, from a shop in Soho called Sex.
Oh, okay.
I'm not right. And this shop was run by Vivienne Westwood and Malcolm McLaren, right? Now, Malcolm McLaren, it was a racy alternative Soho shop, you know, the naughty t-shirts, all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And Vivienne Westwood and Malcolm McLaren explored with that, and they tried to put more and more risque stuff on it. And it was that was picked up by the kids, and that's what really started the punk culture before anyone had released a song. You know, and Malcolm McLaren was also the Sex Pistols manager, or went on to be.
That's how I know the name.
And even one of the store assistants in the shop before the Sex Pistols was Sid Vicious. You know, and it just, the more I read, it seemed that the scene that kind of gave the middle finger to the establishment was more of a fashion movement that eventually bled into music rather than a musical thing that gave birth to a fashion. You know, the idea that the guys running the shop Sex were like, oh, we're onto something here. Why don't we form a band? Malcolm, you run it. Sid, can you do anything? Oh, I can play, you know, the guitar or something like that. Do you got any mates? Let's create a band. We call it the Sex Pistols. Remember, the shop's called Sex. Yeah, so now we've got the Sex Pistols. And all of a sudden I was looking at it and I was thinking, like, it doesn't seem quite as, when you read into it, because when you talk about it, it sounds like it was this thing that happened because of the establishment and the people felt the need to rise up. And then the more you read into it, it almost feels like it was more of a pre-planned business idea from the managers of the shop called Sex.
Yeah, it suddenly lost that organic feel to it. You
Yeah,
know?
I mean, that may not be for everything, because maybe that could be the catalyst for it. But then for everybody else who rose up, it was real. You know, but yeah, it sort of started more with Vivienne Westwood's t-shirts, you know, and then eventually went on to spawn music. But yeah, and the reason I've got that in the hate anyway is just because the more I read, I found it more and more disappointing, because more from my naivety, because I was this idea of like using music as a method of protest, but actually it was more about using clothing as a method of protest, and then they just happened to do some music too.
Yeah, like a group of people did just go, you know, I'm so pissed off with this fucking government and so on. Let's write some music about it, you know, that kind of thing, rather than being like, oi, shop boy, you can sing, can't you?
Yeah, but you can't sing too well, can you?
No, yeah, that's right.
You know.
Look, we have referenced them in the love. We've referenced them already several times. So I'm just going to say it outright. I cannot stand the Sex Pistols. I've never been able to stand them. I get why they're iconic. I get why they're important. But musically, I think they fucking suck. I think their hits great on me. I think Johnny Rotten, is a terrible vocalist. And I know that's kind of the point. And the guitarist, Sid Vicious, it's all right stuff, man. Like, and people go, oh, well, that's what it was supposed to be. And I get all of that. But musically, does nothing for me. Can't stand the Sex Pistols.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah. You know, I can understand the reasons why people wouldn't. Don't get me wrong. It's easy for me to understand why somebody would say, I don't like the Sex Pistols either.
Get a job.
I'm not of the same mind. I absolutely adore the Sex Pistols. Really? One album. Oh. Their one album. That's the thing with the Sex Pistols. We always talk about them like they had like a 10-year career or anything like that. They had one album and then a kind of comeback album that was shit. But the Anarchy in the UK, which I believe was the name of the album, as well as the song. I might be wrong.
Probably.
You know, I was a fan of that album.
Fair enough.
Right, so I apologise for this one in advance.
Ooh.
Tartan.
Ha!
From a fashion perspective, unlike a fellow GBHBL writer who shall go unnamed, but you can all probably guess who that is, I have never gone for and never would go for the tartan look. I'm just not a fan of tartan. That's the truth of it. But most importantly, tartan trousers. Boom. I had to get that one in there, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that guy went through phases, isn't it? Like everyone does.
Yeah, whoever he was.
My next one, right? So I don't know this for sure, right? But I would imagine it was at least around this era. Now, there's a term that's often used even today for bands when they want to make it big and they, you know, we want to grow and bring in a new audience, whether it be Parkway Drive, trying to appeal to a mainstream of Architects at the moment and things like that. And what do we love to say to those bands? Oh, you fucking sold out, you're selling out. And those words there were thrown around so fucking much of bands in punk scene who were trying or potentially deciding, you know what, man, we can make a career out of this and we can continue to say what we want to say and we can get it on bigger stages and things like that. And they were sellouts, all of them, sellouts. I remember, I don't know when he started, but it's a long, long time ago, going back to Sex Pistols, when Rotten started to do the butter adverts. The butter adverts, I don't know if anyone in America ever saw, but the UK butter
Country Life,
that whatever. And honestly, man, it was like, oh my God, look at him selling out. And I'm like, you know, he's an old man now, right? Like, punk's dead. Like, this is him just making some cash. And you're screaming sell out as if the Sex Pistols are still a fucking thing, you know? Yeah. But yeah, I can't say for sure that bands being accused of being sellouts originated here, but it was used a fucking lot. And it certainly grew into prominence that if you went from playing in a grotty toilet and we're like, you know what, sweet, we can actually play a venue and people have to pay to come in, you're a sellout. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I hate that as well. Yeah. Honestly, I really do. It's such a ridiculous thing because it's still something that's prevalent today in metal and probably other genres as well.
Oh, for
you know, this idea that the minute you dare pop your head out of the underground just to have a little look around, that's it. You're the devil. We hate you. How dare you want to earn money?
From what I understand, we're the only genre that does this. Like in R&B, in grime and stuff like that, people champion those that came from nothing and rose to the top and say, fucking A. In our genre, we go, you bastards.
Yeah, how dare you?
Yeah, how dare you?
Who do you think you are? Yep. You pretentious pricks. How dare you? How dare you earn money? Um, it's not a double up as such, but you did touch into one that is in mine, and I'm not calling him a sellout before we get to that, but it is that Country Life Butter ad.
You are awful.
I mean, the ad itself is a terrible ad, and I always just felt it was a damn shame that John Lydon and Johnny Rotten did it. And I was happy that I had no problem with him doing it. I get that he can do what he wants and all that, but because I was a fan of the Sex Pistols, it's things like that that will always get thrown back in my face. And you go on about, you know what? I'm not saying I'm a big fan. I ain't got a fucking Sex Pistols t-shirt. I ain't got their records or anything like that. But you know, I remember that out of like 3, 4, 5 songs from that first album, and I think they're great tracks for me. You know, but you know, I just know that anyone I ever say to, if I ever try to argue the point and say the Sex Pistols were rebellious, they did this, they did that, you know, they were very important, actually, even for metal today. Yeah, they were truthfully an important band. Cool. Somebody will go, "Oh, they're that rebellious. What about the Country Life Butter ad?" Yeah, so damn him for doing that ad, but not because he did it, but more because of the fact that people now throw that back in my face.
Yeah, it's the literal when you've got an axe to grind with anything, you look for one opportunity to use, and that will be it. You know,
John gave them one there.
yeah. Oh, you like Sex Pistols? You must like Country Life Butter as well. Then you know, it's like
I'm like. Yeah, I suppose I'm all right with it. Butter's butter, isn't it?
I don't think I've ever had it. I'm very picky about butter. I don't like butter that much, so I've never had it, you know? Overall, punk, it's a genre, funny enough, I've just never enjoyed. Every genre I feel like I've been able to take something from over the years, and I'm even talking about modern day, when I've got a way more wider, varied taste. And if a band advertises themselves as punk, first time I'm like, yeah, no, you're not. Punk's dead, behave. But I'm not like, oh, great. I'm like, oh, you're going to try and be punk. You know, it's just not something that I've ever enjoyed. I think about the bands from the era and I'm like, yeah, I said in the Love video that I like the Ramones. I like the Ramones. That's where it ends. It really does. The Damned, people like that, they're all right. There's nothing special. Nothing gets me excited at all. You know, it's just not a genre I can honestly say. I can't, when people say to me, name 10 bands from the punk genre, like proper punk genre that you like, I'd struggle to come up with 5, you know?
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, so I guess then my next one for me, it's kind of connected to that a little bit, which is more to do with, I guess, modern times when somebody says they're punk to me, or they're going to be a punk band, I often think, and this is a personal taste thing, it's probably going to be unfair, that so we're going to get quite amateurish sounds,
right?
Lots of feedback, distortion, you know, weird vocals, to go almost like a forced punk sound. You know, there's nothing natural about it. You know, there wasn't a song about the minor strikes or apartheid or something like that. You know, it might be a song about Brexit. God knows these days. You know what I mean? But it's more the sounds that I expect to get from it. And I know that's a personal taste thing, and maybe there are modern punk bands who aren't like that whatsoever. But a lot of the time, when you get this idea of what it's going to be in my head, and oftentimes it's right. You know, I'm going to get 3-minute songs, bit of kind of waily, screechy singing, some, you know, kick the drums over at the end of it, distortion, man, so much feedback in the songs, cymbal heavy drums. You know, it's kind of weird, I guess, because back in the day, that amateurishness was what was appealing about it. But I guess the world has moved on, and music has moved on a long time with it, and I have too. You know, so I guess maybe that's the difference. Maybe punk only works for a certain age group. Maybe you move past it. I don't know.
You were saying that, I was starting to think, I was like, you know, and would a modern form of punk almost be noise rock?
Yeah, possibly. I think it would be, actually. I think it would, yeah.
The only thing that makes me stop and think, okay, maybe not quite as much, is noise rock is good noise rock bands as well are very planned out. Like this isn't this feedback, this heavy bass, this noise and all that. That's well plotted out stuff. It's not because we can't play our instruments. It's because we aim to do that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah.
All right. Well, we've said it a bazillion times over, so I'm just gonna say it as a statement and take it as you want. I really don't give a fuck. It is what it is. Punk is dead. Move on. Your next one.
Well, I'll follow that up then with my next one, which was called "Rest in Peace, Punk." But But I did start this off as, while I do truly believe this, I do truly believe that the spirit of punk isn't dead.
Yeah.
And actually, I think that punk has just become something else. And you will find the spirit of punk in goth, you'll find it in metal, you'll find it in noise rock, in crossover thrash and everything.
Yeah.
And that spirit of, yes, it may have become a part of the foundation of all of these other genres. And now we're the ones who dress how we want and we do what we want and that. But it's the music has changed.
True.
The music behind the ethos. And now we'll call it the metal spirit or the metal brotherhood.
The anarchy.
But the one thing that is absolutely true about it is that whatever it is, it lives in far fewer people these days.
Ooh,
you know, for me, and I do genuinely 100% blame social media for like 99% of everything that's wrong in the world. But the world is quite image obsessed now. You know, that is for the vast majority. And I'm not saying everybody, but for the vast majority, you know, celebrity culture, social media, all that sort of stuff is for it. And I think it's quite sad. You know, I love to see old videos of like, all right, I know you're not a fan, but you know, watch an old video of the Sex Pistols or like a video by the Clash or something like that was like the street done videos, and you see like images of London teeming with alternative people, packed into clubs, packed into pubs, you know, jumping around to their bands, you know, whereas these days our influential youth tend to come more via TikTok videos or an Instagram model. You know, so we obsess over how best to be a sheep these days instead of fighting trends to be ourselves. So I do think that, well, I do think generally that time has died, and that's really the sad bit. That's the rest in peace punk bit is about. I look at those days and I think like how cool it must have been to wander around Camden Town in the height of the punk era with the pubs and clubs all with live bands playing and people teeming around, and it was all alternative people. Whereas now you're just as likely to walk into them same pubs and clubs, the same bloody places that are still there, but they're dead and they're empty. And it's the area is becoming more gentrified, and you're more likely to see a person trying to get you out of the way because they're trying to shoot a TikTok video, you know, because they need to show everybody how great they are. So yeah, I'm truly sad about that. It's not about, you know, I'm a massive punk fan. So the fact that punk music isn't around as much anymore doesn't really have an impact on me. But I do look at that era and I think like that must have been cool, man. It's sad that we don't have that anymore.
Yeah. I mean, what can I add to that? Very strong words.
Strong words. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Delivering verdicts.
So in the Love video, I sort of referenced that one of the things I loved was that punk as it was evolved into punk rock and pop punk. And we got a great load of bands out of there. But that scene wasn't done evolving, because obviously that would have its own problems and its own developments, and bands would rise to the top and many bands would follow. But it would then evolve as well into emo and the really mainstream pop punk stuff, you know, really, we're not even trying anymore. And it's so easy to do this music. But that evolution and where we're at now with that style of music, to the point where, like I said, you dislike that style heavily because of what that brings with it, pop punk and punk rock and stuff like that. Yeah, not good, that evolution. Really went down.
No, it's not. It's not actually, and that yeah, we do pretty much double up on that one actually. I did label this one just pop punk in general. I wasn't talking about a certain evolution out like within the pop punk area, but for me, I guess I've kind of labeled it all the same. But I guess to try and make myself feel better about it, I like to try and think that punk became more of a blend like within the genres of hardcore and crossover thrash and all that sort of stuff. You know, maybe that was its evolution. That's the nice way of looking at it. But just purely because I hate to think of it becoming the mainstream popularized deluded genre of pop punk. I just think that's such a sad decline for what it was in the 70s and 80s to what it became.
Yeah, I mean, I like the genre a lot, but I mean, I can't argue with that. Absolutely, compared to the commercialized Green Day "American Idiot" album, to like that's incredible. Like fucking hell. And we're gonna keep rolling then, because my next one is just the blandness of so many pop punk bands that came during that period from the height. And we're talking from everything from like the Good Charlottes to some ones, and they have good music, but then the worst ones, the All American Rejects, the things like Bowling for Soup, all these bands that have done occasionally good stuff, but all are so bland when you put them and think about how many you put on pop punk into Wikipedia and look at that fucking list. Bands like A doing songs about Starbucks, don't want no job, and you know what the fuck, man, that's horrible, bland shit. Yeah.
And so carrying on from my pop punk one, I have got a special section just for Green Day. And I did say this quite funny actually, because I guess I am acknowledging them for being punk rock by including them in this list in the first place. So there is that. There's a positive. I'm not trying to pretend they're not. But for me, and this is just for me, again, but when I listen to, say, just a couple of songs, but say Anarchy in the UK or The Exploited Fuck the System or the Ramones Blitzkrieg Bop or something like that, and then I hold up Basket Case or Dookie up to those, and I'm just so unimpressed. I'm like, really? And I'm not, this isn't even modern Green Day. I'm talking about some of the stuff that went on to be their biggest songs, which were, I know they weren't their early years, but they were still huge tracks for them. And I hold them up against the bands from back in the days, huge tracks. And I can't even see how these are the two same styles of music. I don't get it. I don't understand.
Yeah.
It just leaves me severely unimpressed. And it's not just Green Day. I could have done that with 100 bands. I know it's unfair to just say that's only Green Day. Now, like you said, I could have held up like an All-American Reject to any of the Ramones song and gone, how is this an evolution? This isn't an evolution. These are two different genres.
No, absolutely. And you're not wrong to pick out a band, because I'm going to do it now as well. But I'm going to pick on the Offspring. And this is not a dislike of these albums. I like a lot of Offspring. I like these albums. But fuck me. Smash to Ixnay and Homra. Okay. There's changes.
Yeah.
Americana. Whoa.
Yeah, that was a proper right turn. That was right.
And originally, I wasn't even going to include Ixnay. I was going to say Smash Americana, but then I was just like, well, no, because Ixnay came in between, and that is an in-between album. But yeah, put Smash and then put Americana next to each other. What the fuck happened there? Like, compare something like I can't think of it. Come Out and Play against Why Don't You Get a Job?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. It's mental. I mean, there was literally nothing anyone. There's no way to argue that wasn't, this is a pure push for the mainstream commercialization.
100%. Yeah.
Well,
I've said it, and I want to reiterate this. Americana's got some bangers on it. Ixnay's got some bangers on it.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's a change of direction for the band, but there's still. That's the thing is, I don't think Americana onwards. I don't think there's any album from that point onwards I would say is a good album. I think you're right. Like, overall, I think there are good songs on the albums, some of them. Whereas pre that, you go from Smash, Ixnay and the Ombre. I think they're both like superb albums.
Mm-hmm. Go check out.
So. Okay, I'm going to do a nice, really short one next because some of my other ones are a bit more deep, and I realised then that I'm ending with like the most pointless thing in the world. So, and that was just one piece of questionable jewelry that I've always hated, and I don't know why, and I've always hated it since I was a kid, and I remember hating it, and that is when people connect a nose piercing to an ear piercing with a little chain.
Oh no, man, you gotta love that.
Nah, I've always hated it. I don't know why. I've got no problem with it. People wear what you want, mate. Honestly, that's fine. But I've always looked at it. I've always hated it. I don't know why. I remember looking at it when I was a kid, like, like proper young, and thinking like, oh, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it sticks in your mind, and thinking like, oh, what if somebody pulled it? So I mean,
one of the best characters in the Return of the Living Dead has that exact thing from the nose to the ear, and I love him for it.
Yeah, I this is one of those weird things for me. The minute I started writing these, one of the first things that popped in my head was, oh, that fucking chain. I've always hated that.
Fair enough. The fact that it popped straight in your head, you got to put it down. Yeah. I've got a really serious one, and then I'm just picking on a band as well. So I'm going to do a really serious one. It's short, just because I can't believe this exists. And this was through my research. Nazi punk and other hateful ideologies. Punk and that shit. What the fuck? The whole accept everyone, be yourself, and do everything you want to do. None of anyone telling you what to do versus, no, you must look this specific way, be genetically looking this way. No. What? Doesn't even make any sense. But yeah, fuck that shit, get in the bin.
Makes any sense in any genre, does it? But there you go.
Yeah, find specific the punk.
No, but people always find
a segment in it, and it was like, oh, other areas of punk, and it was like Nazi punk, and I was like, fuck off.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so what have I got left? I've got 2 left, have I? Yeah, 2 left. Okay, so I've got The Sad Story of Sham 69.
Oh.
So do you know the band Sham 69?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And these are a band that I do like quite a lot, and I've liked watched a tribute act actually quite a few times. Not recently, obviously not recently,
Oh,
but I used to play down in Crayford called Scam 69.
That's right. Yeah, that's it. That's the one. I've seen them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're great fun. They're a great fun band. But this band, like, and I didn't know a lot of this, so you know, I'm not pretending I'm like an expert on this band. I kind of knew a little bit of this, but they were basically dogged by racists their whole career. Very well, they've had careers in stages, so they kind of quit early and then they came back and then they came back. But their first section round, and it wasn't the band weren't racist, but they were constantly attacked by racists purely because they regularly performed at rock against racism shows. Now, the problem with this was that willingly by the band, a group of skinheads had essentially adopted Sham 69 as their band.
Oh.
So then when they started playing the rock against racism shows, they kind of kicked off. And what they then did for the best part of a year, maybe longer, is they went to every Sham 69 show and they rushed the stage, beat people up, attacked the band constantly. And it all got so bad that they eventually called it a day. They performed their last live show at the Rainbow in London where they called it a day. They still carried on releasing music, but they stopped performing live. They couldn't anymore because every time they performed live, somebody got hurt. And even that last show in London, there's actually like news articles on this. You can like look them up online. It basically, because they'd announced it was going to be their last one, these skinheads came to that, but they also came with essentially a militia force from the National Front. And they attacked it, stopped the gig from finishing, broke onto the stage, attacked the band, smashed everything up. You know, so it's purely the fact that, I mean, it's a sad story. It really is. It's terrible. It's fucking absolutely terrible. But essentially a band, because they performed at Rock Against Racism, the racists were so in number that they were able to end their careers, you know. But yeah, I read that story and I was just like, God, it made me feel bad reading it. And I was like, shit, that's terrible, isn't it? That belongs on a 10 things I hate about punk.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. Incredible. I never knew that. I never knew that. Jesus. I'm going to end. So in this research for both the love and hate, one of the things I looked at was modern bands. I've kind of forgotten about these guys, mainly because they just don't get as much news coverage in a way. These days, a period where you couldn't move for like coverage, particularly because they were being locked up in a Russian prison. But a modern punk band that I remember becoming aware of a couple of years ago was a band called Pussy Riot, female feminism and quite very harsh critics of Vladimir Putin, and got themselves in a lot of bother in Russia as well. Obviously a very conservative country, very questionable rules and laws and stuff like that. But the reason why I don't hate Pussy Riot. It's less about the music and more about the fact that there's supposed to be 13 to 20 odd members. It's more of a whole movement more than anything else.
Yeah.
But have you ever listened to him?
I don't think I have, no.
I think they're terrible. And I think like, all right, maybe he should be locked up for that. You know, that's a joke. But yeah, no, I think they're terrible. They're in the hate thing purely because, and I totally admire what they're doing. I know, and to do that in Russia, of all places, to go and be disrespectful to religion as well, and places like that. You know, we see it in the metal world now with someone like Nurgle of Behemoth and the issues he's going in his home country in regards to attacking religion. I think it's very brave and I admire them for that. I just happen to think their music absolutely sucks.
There you go.
Yeah.
And my last one is also a serious one as well. And this is just really about how it didn't take very long really for the true kind of essence of punk to disappear in the cloud of conformity where you had to dress a certain way or style your hair a certain way to be considered punk. Yeah, it really didn't take very long from that point of them coming out and it being about be you to being like, oh, you don't look punk, you're not punk. You know what I mean? It literally all happened in a matter of years. And you know, it's the complete opposite of what it was originally started off to be.
Yeah.
I just thought it's always amazing to me with punk how quickly they shook up the establishment, how quickly a system can be shook up. But it's also more amazing how quickly humans can then take that shaken system and quickly remold it back into a structured organization. You know, and that's truly sad.
Yeah. Once a movement gets popular, it gets branded.
That's what it is. Yeah.
And it's punk sponsored by Pepsi and stuff like that.
So this chaos is brilliant. We love this anarchy, but let's get it sorted a bit because we can't identify each other. So let's all start wearing the same clothes.
Yeah.
And then, right, and then we'll start segregating ourselves off into different subgenres of the punk because, we have slightly different tastes. So we go, right, we love that chaos. And now we've completely structured it and it's no longer the chaos in the first place. So we go, oh, well, that's shit. Let's move on to something else.
There you go. There's 10 things we hate about punk in general. Let us know some of yours in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and Tumblr. Go to Patreon to help us out over there. That's patreon.com/gbhbl as well as Big Cartel where you can find some of our merchandise. We have a podcast running on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts. And of course, if you like this video, do us a favour, hit the subscribe button and help the channel grow. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?